Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Imranali, Khaki, thank you for joining us on the Progeny.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
By profession, you're an optician, but also a Quran teacher. And I came across your social media profile doing these little videos about Quran. And I never thought Quran teaching could be something that can be turned into short videos that are not only helpful to people trying to learn Quran, but also entertaining. So you've gone to a different angle with Quran teaching. Tell us about the Quran teaching and how you started.
Yeah, so obviously grew up in Kenya, as most Khwajas do.
Okay.
And my Quran journey started there. From a young age, my parents were regimental with the Quran for us. So obviously we'd have Quran classes in madrasa, but we would have two teachers come in every day, one after school and one after madrasa.
Okay, nice.
So obviously, being a young child, you resent that a lot because how much Quran can a young child learn? But I think in hindsight, it's the best thing that could have happened because you're just constantly in touch with the Quran. And as they say, right, when you're learning Quran as a youth, then it becomes part of your flesh and blood. So yeah, since a young age, I learned the Quran and went through that whole traditional element in terms of the traditional teaching. You're there reciting for an hour. You can't move a muscle, and then you learn how to recite the Quran from there. And then after I finished madrasa, I went straight into teaching, and my teaching journey started from when I was 16 years old, and it carries on.
I've always, some people say sometimes that, your mother tongue
Yeah.
will have an impact on how you read the Quran. So, for example, I'm lucky enough, for example, fortunate enough to be born into a Iraqi
Yeah.
family that speak Arabic. So certain letters, like for example, Ain or even Ghain, the Gha or the A, that I grew up hearing that and using that.
Comes
But
naturally.
maybe someone else from a different background, according to their mother tongue, or the Va, you know, will be more difficult for them.
Yes.
Can you practice that, or a lot of it is to do with your mother's tongue, or can you improve on that?
Yeah, so obviously you guys have an advantage because you've grown up with that and grown up listening to that. It's definitely practicable. It's definitely something you can learn. So prime example, as you all know, Muntazir Jafar, when he speaks Gujarati, it's like he's always spoken Gujarati, but when he speaks Arabic,
It's like he's Iraqi.
it's like Iraqi, right? So it's something that you definitely can practice. But obviously, if you start at a older age, for example, maybe in your 40s, 50s, 60s, then still not all hope is lost, but it's a bit more difficult. And when I'm teaching the older generation, then you have to be a bit more lenient in that. Otherwise, you can easily disencourage them. So no, it's definitely learnable, and it's all about practice. All about practice.
You started a movement. Let's recite.
Yeah.
What's the Let's Recite movement?
So the Let's Recite movement. So it was all about trying to use a buzzword to get everyone involved together to recite the Quran and to have a relationship with the Quran. So I would teach different classes, or I would have different videos out there, and then I would just try and wrap it up with this Let's Recite, just so that everyone can come together and feel part of this. And inshallah, my ultimate aim is that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people can come together under this Let's Recite movement. And I don't necessarily need to be at the forefront of it. It's all about the Quran being at the forefront, everyone coming together so that we can all recite the Quran properly and also learn from the Quran. So that's the Let's Recite movement.
Your methods of
Yeah.
teaching, are they different, or are they the classical, like
No.
how you were taught in Kenya, or have you changed it around?
Yeah, so the reason why in my intro I said the tradition is because it's definitely very different. When I went straight into teaching, obviously I would use the methods that I learned.
Yeah.
And then coming to the UK, obviously everything was very different. Everything was
When did you come to the UK?
2008
Okay.
for university. Everything was a lot more theory based. theoretical. So, okay, you learn what is qalqala from a textbook. But then what I found was that there's a divide from what you know it theoretically, but you can't implement it practically. So, whereas we learned everything practically and not through a textbook. So, I would know how to implement qalqala, for example, but I wouldn't know how to explain qalqala, for example. So,
You've just described what Iraqi is. We'll use a certain method,
Yeah.
but we didn't know how to
Yeah.
explain it.
So now having that experience and this experience, I've tried to put two together and use the best of both. But the key thing for me is that I feel with the Quran, at the moment, I feel there's a little bit too much respect for the Quran, if you can call it that way.
Okay.
I can see your eyebrows
Yeah.
raising. What do I mean by that?
What do you mean?
So, typically when we're growing up, we'll say, okay, Quran, top of the shelf, hold it with two hands, make sure you're doing wudu, everything, which is good. There's words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously. But what I feel is subconsciously, psychologically, is creating a barrier. Especially when we're kids, even now, it's creating a barrier us with the Quran. Whereas the Quran should be a way of life, it's a part of our life, right? So for example, when a young kid is holding the Quran, all of a sudden you see myself or the mothers, they'll be careful with the Quran, or you'll take the Quran away from them. How are they to be able to have that interaction with the Quran, even on a surface level? So there are ways and means around it. So what I've tried to do is repackage the Quran, so to speak. So obviously the words are the same, the text, but try and take things from the Quran and take things from our day-to-day lives. Because obviously our day-to-day lives we experience that every day, every moment, every second, every minute, right? And then trying to link that with the Quran. So hence you'll see some weird and wonderful examples that I've done. And I've brought some. Shall I share?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you've got some examples that you can share.
Okay, so I've rated, firstly, this is a gift for you.
Thank you very much.
But I'd like you to open one of these chocolates, please. That's okay.
A gift for me.
You'll have to open.
It's going to be a mission opening.
You'll have to open. Yeah, perfect.
What's
your favorite?
My favorite. It's right here. It's the Maltesers one.
Okay. Open the wrapper, please.
Open it up.
Yeah, open it.
Okay, no one's done this on the Progeny before. It's going to be interesting. Okay.
Okay. So
can I have it?
You can have it if you want.
Okay, I'm going to have it. Sorry, I ripped the wrapper.
No, you ripped a bit wrongly, but it's fine. Don't worry.
Sorry.
No worries. So
I was eager to get the chocolate out.
It tastes nice with the coffee, doesn't it? So now,
that's what I thought.
When you were young, did you ever do this with the wrapper? And then, did you ever do that with the wrapper? And then you make that loud sound?
Yeah.
Okay. So this will teach us the rule of iqlab.
Okay.
Okay. So, rule of iqlab is what? Tanween or nun sukun followed by a ba. You have a small meme that appears, right?
Slow down. A lot of people are going to be confused.
So if there's a tanween or nun sukun, so min, then after that, ba'di, there's a ba. So if you want to recite both of them together, you wouldn't say min ba'di, you would say min ba'di. Small meme, right?
Okay.
2 counts, you stretch on it. But this meme is very special because it's not a full meme. It's not a mim ba'di. You're not sealing your lips. There should be enough of a gap for this wrapper to pass by. So, mim ba'di. Can you see the gap there? Mim ba'di. So that's, I did it with a Lindt chocolate and that got like 150,000 views and stuff like that. So it was good. It was good.
This example. You've got another one.
I rated my kids' toys. Giraffe. What? I got this from Masai Mara. My son absolutely loves it. Giraffe. What are giraffes famous for?
Long neck.
Long neck, right? What do we have in the Quran? Long vowels, right? So long vowels, just the way the giraffe has a long neck, there's certain vowels, certain letters, vowels in the Arabic alphabet that you pull, that you stretch, that you lengthen. So for example, we have fatha, kasra, dhamma. Those are short vowels. Now, when do you pull a short vowel? When there's a alif that appears after a fatha. So an alif is a long letter. So if you see an alif after a fatha, you know you have to stretch the fatha by 2 counts, right? For if there's a ya after a kasra, then you know you have to stretch the kasra by 2 counts. So that's your giraffe letter. What's the third giraffe letter? After dhamma, what appears? Wow.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
So wow is a giraffe letter. If you see it after a dhamma, without any sign obviously on the wow, then you stretch the dhamma. So that is your giraffe letters.
Wow. You make it sound so easy.
But that's what it is. I mean, like, you have to have something that's memorable for you to be able to understand. Otherwise, if it's from a textbook and you think, okay, I have to remember alif after fatha, ya after kasra, waw after dhamma. What was it again? And then you're just trying to cram it. And then, okay, now that you've understood it, now it comes to practically implement, which is a totally different story, right? So just remember, giraffe letters, long necks, have to pull it 2 counts, done. And then it's all about practicing.
Yeah.
One final one.
Okay, there's another one.
Do you have a question?
No. I want to go to the
one final one. Bouncy ball.
Okay.
Has your so I've taught this in your daughter's school. So the bouncy ball surahs.
Okay.
So bouncy ball
surahs. Okay,
yeah, bouncy ball surah. Can you guess?
No.
Wild guess.
Bouncy ball surah. Short surahs. Yeah.
Close. So bouncy ball surah is the
Surah An-Nas or Falaq is a bouncy ball surah.
Surah Ikhlas.
Ikhlas is a bouncy.
Why bouncy ball? Ikhlas. Why is it bouncy ball?
Because there's a rhyme with each of the.
No, it's to do with the last letter, particularly.
Ahad, the dal being the last letter in قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So the dal being the last letter in all the verses.
And then, what about the dal being the last letter of the?
You're putting me on the spot now.
So you've correctly pronounced it.
Yeah, see, that's why I told you about Iraqis. We pronounce it correctly, but to describe it, we were like, this is how we were taught.
قل هو الله أحد. Ahad. Dal. What rule is that? Qalqala. So you're bouncing on the dal. So that's why everyone get your bouncy ball ready. قل هو الله أحد. It's gone. It's fine. Allahu Samad. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So you're bouncing it. So everyone knows, even from a young age. So you wouldn't necessarily teach a young kid qalqala rules, right? You'd say, okay, find your makharij, get your letters correct, try and recite properly, and then later on, qalqala. But notice, I'm not telling them these are your qalqala letters, make sure you know. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying this is just a bouncy ball. And this is a bouncy ball surah, because that Surah Ikhlas is the easiest one to pronounce. And because they are because they are going to memorize Surah Al-Ikhlas, that's one of the first surahs that they'll memorize. Why not teach them correctly, rather than teaching them in one way and then having to teach them in another way? So they've memorized it correctly, and then later on when they have that understanding, then you can tell them, look, by the way, this bouncy ball, there's a name for it, which is qalqala. Then you can tell them later on.
How do you improve on a child's... do you want to give us the bouncy ball back? How do you improve on the makharij of the letters with children?
Okay, so I feel it's... with makharij, it's all about affiliations and storytelling. Okay, so for example, and the toughest letters are the throat letters, right? Naturally, especially for khojas. The throat letters are 6 in total. So you have alif and ha and ayn, and then the top are the scraping ones, kha and gha, right? So, for example, this thing that I came across, and all of this is just through seeing what's out there and thinking about it and bringing it together. So I just came across this beautiful thing called Qur'anophonics. So there's this whole drive behind phonetics.
Yeah.
Qur'anophonics. So what they do is take the shape of the letter, make a story out of it, and connect the sound with the story and the shape of the letter. So it's all coming together. So, for example, you have the letter kha, right? You have kha, which is a boy. He's not well, so he's wearing a woolly hat on top.
Okay.
Hence the dot on top. He's not well and he's coughing a lot. So what does he do? Kha, kha, kha. So woolly hat on top, the boy is coughing. So that's where you're pronouncing and practicing that. Or for example, the letter sin, which is a bit easier. You have a snake that makes a sound. Now you have 2 small twirls and then a big one. So the snake is going 1, sa, and then a big one, sin. So you get them to practice with their hands. So then they Remember, sin. This one's a nice one, the, because a lot of people make the mistake with the or za, especially in the Indo-Pak culture. The differentiation between the letter dhal, which is the
ولا الضالين or zalin.
that, or
Which is-
the dal dhal or raza. You see a lot of people say za. So the, for example, you have to stick your tongue between your teeth, right? That's how you differentiate the pronunciation. So the is a small dinosaur with a big eye, so hence the dot on top. And then it's seeing an insect around. So that small dinosaur wants to eat that insect. So what does it do to eat that insect? Sticks his tongue out. So you stick your tongue out and eat that insect. The. Hence you stick your tongue out and pronounce the letter dhal. So you just create stories and make it fun. Quran is all about having positive vibes around it. Because when we've grown up, hence my introduction, when we've grown up, sit on a bench longer than this, you probably still see them in stand mode during Shahr Ramadan. At that time, the teacher would have a cane. So you move a muscle and you've had it. And if you don't recite well, again, you've been told off and stuff. So gone are those days, thankfully. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're engaging. Right? You can't go the opposite extreme and just let them do anything they want, right? So you have to try and make it as engaging as possible.
And this whole method of teaching, that you've given us example, you came up with all of that.
So again, it's so I try and research a lot. There are brilliant teachers out there, absolutely brilliant teachers. There's some that I've taken directly from them. So for example, Quranophonics. There are others that you just think about it. So this giraffe letters, for example, I went to Masai Mara this summer and I was thinking, okay, many animals here. How do you link the two? Animals with letters. So for example, lions. A lot of times one of my teachers say Jalal as well. And he'll forever tell me, don't recite from your nose, recite from here. And then we went and saw a lion and I heard a lion roar for the first time in real life. And it's a very chesty roar. It's from here. It's never not from here. If it's from here, then it sounds funny, right? So I linked the two. And it just makes sense, You recite from here, you recite like a lion, so then you have that aura about your recitation. Or for example, elephants or a field, you just connect the two. So yeah.
So you said your teacher. So I'm guessing you're still learning.
Yeah, 100%. You can never stop learning. I have two teachers on a weekly basis.
And you're still learning.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
Do you think there's a stigma with people maybe aged, 30 or 40 plus to say that, I went to madrasa when I was younger back home and I know how to read the Quran. In Shahr Ramadan, I open the Quran, I complete the Quran. Why should I go and learn? So there's a stigma maybe around someone my age or even older to think, why should I continue learning Quran? I don't want to say ego but they feel that they know it.
Yeah.
And, again, in some cases, people are reciting Quran wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe they think they're reciting it right, but they're not following the way it should be recited.
Yeah. So I think it's not entirely their fault, because that's how the community is, right? But let me ask you this question in turn. How many self-help books have you either read or come across? Like Think Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and stuff like that. Loads, right?
Loads.
It's the in thing at the moment, right?
Yeah.
These high performance podcasts and all of these stuff. Why do you read them, or why do you come across them, and why do you never get bored of it?
Because you're learning something new.
Because you're always learning something new, and there's always something that's very relevant to your life, right? Now
you're improving yourself.
Exactly. So I think because you've approached these things with that mindset and with that mentality, it never gets boring. Regardless of how many hundreds or thousands of podcasts you listen to or you'll record, it'll never get boring, right? Similarly, I feel our attitude towards the Quran or approach to the Quran needs to be the same. Now, think about this, right? These high performance people, or these people that have done amazing, that we can learn from, they've gone through life, they've experienced life, and they've come across these things, or they've done really well in life. Now think about, who is the one that gave them the ability to do this? Who is the one that gave them the opportunity to do this, or to give back, or to write, and to talk about these kind of stuff? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who has created us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all know this, right? It's a given. But it just needs a change in perspective of how we approach things. Our goal and our aim and our objective is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through everything that we do. Not just by reciting Quran and praying, but the fact that we're talking here, the fact that we go to work, the fact that we raise our kids the way we do, is so that we can all get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this, and He has created us for us to get closer to Him. Now, He wouldn't do that without giving us anything, right? So, that's why He's given us the Holy Qur'an. The Holy Qur'an, you take any bestseller book, the Qur'an is the best-selling book.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Even though it's not.
I came across a stat the other day, a long time ago. I think it's in the billions.
Copies of Quran.
Copies of Quran sold. So, no doubt it's a bestseller. It's not only a best-selling book, it's a best-selling self-help book. So, we just need to make sure that we change our perspective and approach the Quran that way. So, what we've done, and the reason why I say it's not their fault is because it's the community's fault. The community has always emphasized on reciting and learning how to recite the Quran. The Quran was not brought for us to recite only. That is one aspect. The Quran is multidimensional. And that is the beauty of the Holy Quran. That although there are words, a set of words or a set of sentences, statements that were revealed 1400 years ago, but they mean so many different things to so many different people. It's one set of statements, right? But you recite it, you recite the same verse, I'll recite the same verse. It'll mean so totally different because of our circumstances. You recite the same verse last year, or even a couple of months back, and now you recite the same verse now. It'll mean something totally different. And that is the beauty of the Quran. So yes, you start off by reciting because you want to gain familiarity with it. Because it's a bit weird not being able to recite it and then trying to engage with it. Now, having said that, there's a big drive towards, okay, I want to learn Arabic because it's hard for me to recite in Arabic. I'll just go through the translation. Which is okay. It's a fair enough point because I want to understand the Quran. But there's a reason why it was revealed in Arabic. Because the depth of the Arabic language is such that it cannot be described in English. It cannot be. So we all have to go through this phase or through this journey where we try to learn as much as we can to recite the Quran, to understand the Quran, and then go deeper and deeper.
Do you think that maybe we have neglected the Quran in our communities?
I think that's a loaded question. Because I've just said that when we're growing up, there's a definite push towards reciting the Quran. I was having this conversation with Sheikh Noor about the verse in the Quran where the Prophet will complain that we've taken the Quran mahjura. Yeah. Now we can turn around and say, I know how to recite the Quran. For me to be able to be fluent, I need to be familiar with the Quran, which means I've spent so many hours learning the Quran. So surely I've not neglected the Quran. There are different levels of neglection. So, okay, I may know how to recite the Quran, but have I taken any lessons from the Quran? That is the main point.
Does it impact my life?
Yeah, exactly. And if I haven't done that, then I've neglected the Quran. So that was a very eye-opening conversation with Sheikh Nurum. And so that's why I say it's a load, because there's so many different dimensions to it, depending on where you are in your life. But yes, definitely, like the Quran, there's so many different things that we can do with the Quran. Now, if we take the whole Quran, if I bring you the Quran just now, it's kind of a daunting task to be, and I tell you, okay, open the Quran and take a lesson from it. It's very daunting just now, right? Because it's very deep. That's why what I'm trying to do is take everyday items and then take a verse, a statement from the Quran, for example, and then try and put the two together. So this is one thing, using these items to teach how to recite the Quran. The other day I did a video about cookies in the Quran.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it just came about. So I was
waiting for you to say that cookies are mentioned because
That was the whole point,
Yeah.
a hook point. It must be. I'm sure it must be in one way or the other. But I was just buying cookies from a friend, and she said that please tag me into this. Do a post to tag me. So I thought instead of doing a story, let me use an opportunity to look into the Quran to see how I can connect cookies with the Quran, and then do that. So the thing is that I'm using this opportunity to improve my learning, nothing else. I want to learn, and for me to think, okay, I have, it's been a long time since I've created a video, and if that's going to push me towards learning about the Quran and research about the Quran, so be it. So it's mainly for me. I don't care how many views I get, how many followers I get. It's mainly
It's not
for
very
me.
traditional, the ways you're using. I remember seeing, and the titles are very catching.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you do this all yourself. You don't have a team behind you who.
So I'm
yeah.
trying to get a team because at the moment, as you can see, my videos are very raw. There's no editing and stuff like that. So I'm trying
Team's right here.
Yeah.
But you're using the social media platform to get people more interested. As I started, I said, you've made it not only people are learning, but it's now entertaining as well, which I could never think could happen, where you can make the teaching of Quran. With, let's be honest, when we used to go madrasa, it was quite boring.
Yeah.
But now you've done these videos, and you've used Instagram, for example, and other social media platforms to do these videos. I remember the one, and I think I told you about this, the read Quran incorrectly to
Yeah.
your children. And I thought that's a bit out of the box.
Yeah.
How, for those that haven't seen it, why is it good to read Quran wrong to your children? By the way?
So, so the reason why, firstly, I deliberately use these titles because of it raises a few eyebrows, and obviously then it gets people to see what's this guy talking about, right? And why is it good? Because what happens is sometimes when you're teaching your children, let's say they know Surah An-Nas, for example, and you teach them, you make them listen to the recitation so that they get it. By the way, kids are like sponges. So
100%, yeah.
don't think your kids are too young to memorize the Quran, or too young to learn how to recite the Quran, or too young to do anything in life. They are like sponges. They will take in everything they hear, everything they see, everything all the senses can do, they will take in. So, yeah, listening is as important as reciting when it comes to learning the Quran, even for us. So they take in that, and then you practice with them, right? So obviously you're trying to practice Surah An-Nas and in the more traditional way, which is still good. And now they know Surah An-Nas, for example. Now, what happens? The key thing is to practice, right? Otherwise, if you go into a different surah and you don't practice the surah, they'll forget it. So you have to change things about. Otherwise, they'll say, I've already done that. So you change things about and say, okay, I'm going to recite, and you tell me if I'm reciting correctly. So you mentioned that you skip a whole verse. In fact, what I would do is I would change the haraka. Yeah. So for example, I would say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. And I would say, no, it's not like that. It's قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. So then what's happening is two things. One is they're engaging and you're making it fun. But the second is that the fact that they are teaching you means that they've understood the concept. And you'll be able to know how much they know. So, yeah, that's how you recite incorrectly and teach.
At the moment, you're teaching anywhere, or
no? So my capacity is quite a lot. So I'm teaching at our kids' school, our daughter's school. I have a few classes online, but my main thing is my main interest is to make a huge impact. So in the sense that we have a lot of amazing Quran teachers, but at the same time we have a lot of Quran teachers that I feel that they can do a lot better and have a bigger impact through many students. So rather than me teaching, let's say 20 students, because that's my capacity, for example, I'd rather train or teach or talk about things, and like 20 teachers, for example, listen to it and adapt it, and then it's a multipliers effect. So that's my passion.
Can we get, I mean, I love the way you're doing things. Do you think that you can maybe set up a syllabus where it can sort of enter into our madrasas?
100%.
Teach children Quran in a fun way, and maybe not a boring way.
Yes, 100%. I'm actually working with the MCE, so
Amazing.
the World Federation.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if we can implement as much as we can, that will be rolled out worldwide. And I'm always looking for opportunities for different projects to do that, because obviously different organizations will have different ways of working, right? So yeah.
Inshallah. Well, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you success
Ameen.
in
And tawfiq.
and tawfiq in serving the Quran.
Ameen.
And I hope the Quran is your shafi'
Ahsantum.
hereafter. Thank you for making
Shukran.
time for the
No, thank you so much. Ahsantum.